Hi, welcome to Parts Integration Series. I'm Vedavyas. I'm founder of Vital Leadership Community. I'm a certified NLP Master Practitioner and I'm integrated leadership coach. In the first video of parts integration, we looked at what parts integration is. So when we have two different conflicting parts within ourselves, we understand the positive intention behind them and we'll look at how to integrate these two parts. So we looked at that in the first video, and in the second video, we explored parts integration on a social level, and then we looked at Stephen Covey's concept of third alternative, and we looked at certain aspects related to it. Now, in this video, the third video in the parts integration series, we'll be doing something interesting. So we'll be taking Israel-Iran war uh, as a case study, and we'll be applying parts integration on these two different levels. In the first video, we looked at different parts within ourselves and integrating them, and then the social level, integrating different alternatives on the social level. So all this will apply in this case study, and we'll be going deeper and deeper. So as we explore, so we looked at in the second video, right, we go to the very core, very essence of that, and also you'll be looking at certain positive intents of the part. So layer by layer, we go deeper and deeper. So there's going to be a very unique and interesting video. And in this context, when I was doing this, I got connected to a certain quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti. Let me read that out. So Jiddu Krishnamurti says, "We are the world. The world is you and me. The world is not separate from you and me. We have created this world, the world of violence, the world of wars, the world of religious divisions, sex, anxieties, the utter lack of communication with each other, with no sense of compassion, consideration for another. Wherever one goes in any country throughout the world, human beings, that is, you and another, suffer. We are anxious, we are uncertain, we don't know what is going to happen. Everything has become uncertain. Right through the world, as human beings, we are in sorrow, fear, anxiety, violence, uncertain of everything, insecure. There is a common relationship between us all. We are the world essentially, basically, fundamentally. The world is you and you are the world. Realizing that fundamentally, deeply, not romantically, not intellectually, but actually, then we see that our problem is a global problem. This is not my problem or your particular problem. This is a human problem. So I told about we go layer by layer, deeper and deeper, right? So we look at the political layer first, and then the religious layer, and then the intellectual layer and spiritual layer. So as we go deeper, I think this is what we'll essentially understand, that we are the world. Each one of us, what is happening, all the conflict, all the war, all this friction happening in the world is essentially about the friction that we see within ourselves. It's a manifestation of that. So as we go deeper, once again, we'll look at certain questions, the reflection part. So yeah, let's go ahead. And as usual, I'm using my mind maps. It's a very wonderful tool to see all the interconnectedness of various things. As I told, this is the third video in the parts integration series. So the politics, philosophy, and the inner path. And I told you we'll go layer by layer, right? So intro, I just told about that. And then the political layer. Okay. So first, to understand what is going on now, let us look at the history part. So where did all this begin? So first we need to understand, again, I'll go in such a way that even the people who do not have even basic understanding of all this various dynamics will start from the fundamentals. And even people who know things to a certain extent, still there will be certain questions. So we'll go deep so that many of those questions also will be answered in the process. So the first, the history part. So we hear about Israel versus Palestine and all this. So in the ancient Palestine, the Jews used to be there, the Jewish kingdoms and all those. And later on, it has been conquered by other empires. For example, the Roman Empire. So because of all these invasions, the Jews, they dispersed into various other areas in the surrounding areas, the different parts. And in the series after the Roman, like that, many invasions happened, and then the Islamic rule started. And during the Islamic rule, majority of the Palestinian population became the Arab Muslims. And then till the early part of the 20th century, Ottoman Empire, controlled the Palestinian region. And then once the Ottoman Empire collapsed, Britain took control of it from 1917 to 1948. So now let us understand where all this conflict, what is the root of this conflict of Israel and Iran, or Israel and Palestine, that started, and then it evolved into Israel versus Iran. So Israel versus Palestine, the key tension is, now we looked at how Jews dispersed into various regions, right? Now, when they dispersed into various regions, they got persecuted by various different people. And what many people know, the famous persecution is done by the Hitler, the Holocaust, the genocide that he committed. So because of all this uh, persecutions, they wanted to come back to their homeland, which is the Palestine. Now Arabs are already there in the Palestine. So they felt, okay, this is our land. How can they come and claim that this is their land? Now, so because of this, so on one part, so it is called as Zionism, the Jews coming back and claiming their homeland. So that movement is known as the Zionism. And then on the other side, there is a Palestinian nationalism, two different nationalistic forces. So both of them want the control over the land. Now, in this context, so as I told, Britain was controlling the region, right? So Britain and the UN, so a proposal was kept. Let us divide the Palestine into two parts. One part will go for the Jews, and other part will go to the Arabs. Now, those from India can relate that to the partition of India into the India and Pakistan, the Bharat. A similar kind of solution was proposed. The Jews kind of reluctantly accepted to that, and Arabs rejected that. And another, there is this place called Jerusalem. So we'll explore more about Jerusalem. But for now, Jerusalem is very important, both for Arabs and the Jews. And the UN proposal is, let's make Jerusalem not specific to either of these. Let's keep that as an international, like a neutral entity, like a separate entity. That was the proposal. So as I told, Jews accepted, Arabs didn't accept, and all the friction was happening. And the Britain, they couldn't control the violence. They just left that in mess and they left. And in the next year, 1948, Israel is officially created. And then the war started. So the war breaks between Israel and, so there are the Arabs, the Palestinian Arabs, right? And there are surrounding Arab countries. The Arab countries also supported so whenever we say Palestinians, we are essentially referring to the Arabs. So the Arab countries supported the Arabs in Palestine. So it was Israel versus the Arab countries. Now in this war, Israel not only survived, it actually expanded the territory and it even captures the West Jerusalem. And this is seen as one of the reasons why America kind of is interested in Israel. So America is kind of surprised by the Israel's military strength, and it felt Israel will probably be a very good partner in the expansion of power of America. It needs powerful partners in various regions, right? So Israel, the kind of strength it showed militarily, America began to become more and more closely work with Israel. And because the Israel expanded its territory, many Palestinians got displaced. So it is known as Nakba. It is a very like emotional wound for the Palestinians. And then after many years, in 1967, there is another war, and Israel occupies even more territory. So there are other parts of the Palestine. Now Israel occupies the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem also. And UN opposed this expansion of Israel. But anyway, Israel expanded. And so from then, Palestinians want their land back, their West Bank and Gaza back, which the Israel occupied, and also the East Jerusalem. So this has been their aspiration from then. Now let us look at certain recent incidents. What are the dynamics recently? So to understand the recent dynamics, we should start from the Abraham Accords in 2020. So Abraham Accords, again to understand this, we need to get certain understanding of Arabian Persia, because there is a certain change of dynamics because of the Abraham Accords. So again, Arabian Persia, presently we do not have specific countries, Arabian Persia. These are ancient civilizations. So Arabia, there are countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. So they are related to the Arabian region. And the Persian region includes Iran, Pakistan, these things. Now, as we looked at, Israel's war is essentially with the Arabs. Now, what happened during the Abraham Accords is, so it is mediated by US. At that time, Trump's administration was there. So there was a certain peace treaty between Israel and the Arab nations. So there is a certain connection that happened between certain Arab nations and Israel. So they began to connect. And as they began to connect, the Palestinians felt that they are losing support from the Arab nations. Now they began to connect more with Iran. So as we looked at, Iran is a Persian nation. So Iran began to support Palestinians. Again, it has its own advantages of expansion of its own power. So the Palestinians has their own benefit, and Iran has its own benefit. Now, now that this change of dynamics happened because of Abraham Accords, on October 7th, 2023, a very deadly attack happened. So the Hamas militants from the Gaza is a Palestinian region occupied by Israel. And at this time, Gaza has been getting more and more support from Iran. So they attacked Israel. And in that attack, more than 1,200 people died, and more than 240 people have been taken by hostages, as hostages. Now, obviously, this is like a very big blow to Israel, and it triggered the war. So Israel, went on a war over Gaza, and in this war, statistically, more than 70,000 Palestinians died because of the Gaza war, Israel war on Gaza. Now this slowly evolved into Israel and Iran conflict. So from 2000 around 2024, so the Israel-Iran conflict happened. There's a 12-day war that happened, and so now it's like the US and Israel on one side and Iran on one side, and their own supporting parties. Now in 2026, a major trigger point happened when this side of US and Israel, they attacked and they killed the Iran supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. So he is like so they call supreme leader. How certain states have the presidents, their prime ministers. So he is the supreme authority in Iran. He has been killed. And as a retaliation, Iran attacked Israel, Iran attacked UAE, the Arab nations which are in this side of US and Israel, and the US bases there. So this attack happened, and all what we have been seeing in the recent news, all that started. So this is the political layer. Now let us go to the religious layer. Again, here I would like to emphasize that, as we have seen, there are various different forces that are happening here: political dimension, geopolitical, and nationalistic, and a lot of that stuff. So we are looking at one factor which is adding fuel. This is not the only factor. It is one factor, significant factor, which has been adding fuel to all this friction. That is a religious layer. So we'll explore this layer now. Now, first we need to understand, again, as I told, I'm going from the very basics. So uh, there are Abrahamic religions. So the Judaism, the Jews' religion is Judaism, and the Christianity and Islam, they are known as the Abrahamic religions because Abraham, they all originated from Abraham. So Abraham, so there is one son of Abraham, Isaac. So the Judaism and Christianity come from that lineage, and there is one son of Abraham, Ishmael. The Islam comes from that lineage. Now, to understand very quick and some few basics related to these three religions. So Judaism is a very old religion, even before Christianity. Actually, Jesus was a Jew. So the Judaism's view of Jesus and Christianity is they do not consider Jesus as a divine person. They just see him as as a teacher. And so there is a prophecy that a Messiah will come. So they do not see Jesus as Messiah. And they have their own holy books like Torah and these things. Now coming to Christianity, whatever the prophecy that a Messiah will come, Christians see Jesus as that Messiah. So Jesus is the central figure of Christianity, and their holy book is Bible. And Islam, so they consider Muhammad as the final prophet, and they even have a lot of respect for Jesus. And there are certain certain difference in how they view the life of Jesus. For example, they don't see Jesus as that story of crucifixion. They don't go with that. So it's like that, and their holy book is Quran. Now, a very important aspect of all the Israel versus Palestine, at a very core level, it is about Jerusalem, a very important place. So let us understand why Jerusalem is so important for the Abrahamic religions. So the Abrahamic religions see Jerusalem, it is a place where the creation happened. God began the creation in Jerusalem. So this is a very important place. And we hear the word Bakrid, right? There is a festival. So there is a story related to Bakrid. So Abraham, he he decides to sacrifice his son for the gods. God asks, and decides to sacrifice. And when he is about to sacrifice, then God sends another animal like goat uh, instead of his son. Um, and he says that it is basically to test the faith of Abraham. So this that is how the Bakrit. So Bakrit is like a representation of this story. So this Bakrit, the story of Bakrit, that also happened in Jerusalem. And the key figures in the Abrahamic religions, Jacob, David, Solomon, all of them, are related to Jerusalem. In Islam, they may have different names. Instead of Jacob, they say Yaqub. David becomes Dawood. Solomon becomes Suleiman. Uh, there is slight change of names, but again, these are key figures in Islam as well. Now, one very important thing related to Jewish perception about Jerusalem is, so the first temple is built by King Solomon in Jerusalem, and it has been destroyed by Babylonians. Again, after many years, second temple is built. Again, it is destroyed by Romans. Now the prophecy is that there will be a third temple that will be built. So the Jews are looking forward to the third temple to be built in Jerusalem. So for them, Jerusalem is very important. And now the Jesus crucifixion and the resurrection happened in Jerusalem. So for Christians, Jerusalem is a very important place. And for the Muslims, so Prophet Muhammad is said to have ascended to heaven. So he goes from Mecca to Jerusalem, Jerusalem to heaven, and again back from heaven to Jerusalem and Mecca in single night. So in a flying horse. So according to this, Islam views Jerusalem as a very, very sacred place. So, like this, Jerusalem is important for all three religions. Now, let us look at another aspect. This is generally referred to as anti-Semitism. So, anti-Semitism is certain hostile feeling towards the Jews. So, especially it started with the early Christianity. So, the early Christianity had this perception that it is Jews who are responsible for the Jesus crucifixion. And as the church gradually became more and more powerful, at some point it became like a national religion for the Roman Empire. So as it became more and more powerful, the persecutions against the Jews became more and more. And not just persecutions, for example, if some kind of any kind of problem happens in the society, people used to blame Jews for that. Okay, it is because of them all these things are happening. Like that, all this anti-Semitist sentiment built up. And in Islam also it is there, but not like compared to Christianity, it is much less. But even some segments of anti-Semitism is there in Islam also. So all this led to Zionism. So Zionism is this feeling that we Jews have been persecuted. We have been we're getting this persecution in all these places. Now we want a safe place for us to be. We want a nation. So this is the Zionism. So all this persecution, anti-Semitism, has led to this Zionism, this strong feel for Jews to have their own state, which in 1948 happened in the form of Israel. Now, now we just saw about the anti-Semitism, which essentially happened because of the Christian, the church. Now we need to understand in Christianity, again, we look at the Pentecostal Christianity, it is a part of Protestant Christianity, but we need to understand what is the difference. So, who are these Protestants? Again, I'll quickly tell about this. So, initially, there are Christians and there is the Christian church. Now, at some point, there are a certain segment of people who protested against the orthodox ways of the church. And they told, no, we will not follow these ways. We will follow our own form of Christianity. Then the orthodox form became the Catholics, and the people who protested against became the Protestants. And these Protestants gradually became very powerful, very rich. In fact, Max Weber, a very famous sociologist, wrote a book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. So this is about how, historically the Protestants became very powerful. So it is considered to be a very important text in the sociology. So all these things happened. And even today, if you see, so according to the 2023-24 survey, US survey, 40% in the US are Protestants and only 19% are Catholic. So now coming to Pentecostal Christianity, it is a part of the Protestant Christianity. And they have influenced the US support for Israel. So US friendly relations towards Israel has been influenced by this segment. And how they view is, they view, so there is a biblical prophecy, what is going to happen. So, according to the prophecy, there is going to be a second coming of Christ. So, the Christ is going to return. There will be a final battle between the God and the devil, and the third temple is going to be built. And they see the formation of Israel, like in the 1948, the formation of Israel is a step towards that. And they believe that the second coming of Christ is going to happen. All the events that are happening are leading towards that. So that is the view. Now, so we looked at the American perspective, especially in the context of Pentecostal Christianity. Now let us look from the Iran perspective. So Iran is a Shia majority population. So for this, again, let us quickly understand about Shia and Sunni. So they are two main categories of the Islam, the Muslims. So there are Sunnis and there are Shias. So how we can understand is, so the Prophet Muhammad, the final prophet, is there. Now, he didn't give any clear instruction of after prophet who will take care of the community. So the prophet died and the community was confused. Who will lead the community? So then two different arguments came. One argument is the most qualified person from the community should lead the community. Like voting and some kind of thing can happen, the consensus and like that. So that community became the Sunni community. So then the father-in-law of the prophet, Abu Bakr, so he's not a blood relative of the prophet. So he becomes the leader because people saw him as the most qualified. And the Arab nations are Sunni majority in population. Now the Shias, the other argument is the Prophet's family, the bloodline of Prophet should lead the community. So they became the Shias. So the Ali, the cousin of Prophet, he becomes the leader of that community. So the Persian nations are mostly Shia majority. So again, as we have seen, Iran is a Persian nation. So Iran, the majority would be Shia. Now there is a very important concept called Shaheed. So Shaheed means the one who dies in the way of Allah, being witness to the faith. So the martyrdom. Now this is important for all Muslims, but especially for Shia it is very important. Again, there is certain reason for that. There is a very important event for them, which is the Battle of Karbala. So it is during this battle, the Prophet's grandson, the Ali's son, he died. He was killed. And this is seen as a symbol of sacrifice and resistance to injustice. So during the Muharram, they mourn and they honor this aspect. So for them, this is a very important symbol. So when Ali Khamenei, when the US Israel, they killed the supreme leader of Iran, again we need to understand. So we are calling supreme leader, and he is referred to as Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So Ayatollah is a title, religious title. So he is not just the head of state, some military head. He's also the religious leader of Shia community there. Now, once he's killed, uh, how they told about the death is he became a shaheed. So his death is not just normal death. So it is a martyrdom. And so what US and Israel thought is once we kill the head, the Iran will surrender. But their understanding of shaheed, the death is very different. So they not only stopped, his son became the supreme leader now, and Iran didn't back down, as we have seen. So, so many things that happened has a certain religious influence to all these events. Now, this is the religious layer. Now, as we have been exploring, so we looked at the political layer, then come to the religious layer. Now, one question is, how do we bring the harmony to all these various different kinds of ideologies and different segments? So for this, let us take Bharat as a case study. We look at certain dynamics of Bharat, and then we'll come back to the context of the Judaism and Islam. So in this context, so again, many people think Hinduism is a religion, Bharat, Hinduism, and all. But if those who are, have some kind of familiarity, they know that Bharat is a like a geographical identity, and there are so many different philosophies here. So Hinduism is not a religion; it's a very complex kind of thing. So there are so many different philosophies in Bharat. To mention some major things, so there are Astika category philosophies, which are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Nastika, Lokayata, Buddhism, Jainism, Ajvika. So again, I'm just mentioning few major things. There are so many things. So in such a complex kind of setting, we have unity in all this diversity. Again, it's not that conflicts didn't happen, they happened, but with such a kind of complexity and with such a huge population, we still have a certain beautiful unity. So that definitely makes Bharat unique. And let us go even deeper. So I mentioned various things, right? Vedanta is just one aspect. So just if we take that specific aspect, let's see what kind of complexity will be there. So in Vedanta, there are multiple schools. We'll just look at three main schools: Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. So again, I'll give some very quick and basic details. Again, there is a certain reason why we are exploring, because we'll look at how a certain harmony um, happens between these things. And as I told, we'll apply this to the Jewish and the Islam context. So Advaita. So Advaita, the main acharya of Advaita is Adi Shankaracharya. Again, the exact date, it's been like many centuries back, right? So we don't know exactly when he was born, but many centuries back. And and at the time of Adi Shankaracharya, there were many different religious conflicts, many different sects and their own ways of doing things, like many different religions in one way to understand. Now, what Adi Shankaracharya did is he essentially told that the underlying divine in all these various things is the same divine. So he brought this concept of Advaita. So Advaita is two different things. Advaita is there is no two different things. There is only one. There is only oneness. Everything in the universe, everything in existence is only one. And whatever you see as separation is only your Maya. It is only your illusion. And even what we see as myself as an individual is also God. It is only your own illusion that you are seeing as you and the God as separate. So to give an analogy, so if you take a drop and if you take the ocean, the drop and the ocean are essentially same. The water in the drop and the water in the ocean, it's all one. So that is the Advaita philosophy. Now, Vishtadvaita. So after many years, Ramanujacharya came. So to understand this in a better way, there is a certain story related to Ramanujacharya. So in his early days, Ramanujacharya was actually learning the Vedas from an Advaita related teacher. And there is certain description that came in some scripture about the God's eyes, the eyes of the Lord. So generally, the eyes of the Lord are given beautiful descriptions, like the lotus petals and like that. Now, what this Acharya did is he compared the eyes of the Lord with the buttocks of monkey. So there is this muscles around the anus region, right? So he compared those buttocks with the eyes of the Lord, and Ramanujacharya didn't like it. So again, so in what context we are telling this is, so what is difference? Lord's eyes, monkey's buttocks, lotus, everything is one, right? So what's the point? We can compare anything with anything. The issue is we are missing out that aspect of devotion, that sweetness in this. If the Advaita concept becomes too crude, we miss out the devotion aspect. So then Ramanujacharya came up with this philosophy of Vishishta Advaita. So it is Vishishta Advaita. So he still upholds the Advaita, but he brings certain aspect of Vishishta in that. So he still talks about oneness. He also includes diversity in that. So, for example, he would say that yes, we are also part of God, and there is certain uniqueness. And in order to be one with the God, we need Sharanagati. So, again, taking the same metaphor of water and ocean. So, there are waves, and waves are part of the ocean. At the same time, waves have their own form, their own dynamics. So, that is Vishishtadvaita. And then, in a somewhat similar kind of time frame, there was another Acharya, Madhvacharya. So again, to understand this, So there have been some people who will take only some specific parts from the scriptures, and they will tell, for example, Krishna, he there is Ras Leela, dancing with the gopis and all. So they would say, okay, Krishna danced with gopis, he had fun with gopis. I will also have fun with multiple women. I will have affairs with multiple women. So they will just take one thing out of context and they will distort it. So then, so for them, the question would be, okay, Krishna danced with multiple women. Krishna also lifted Govardhan Giri with his finger. Can you do that? Can you do all the things that Krishna did? So there is a difference between you and Krishna. Don't compare with Krishna. So this way of approach is the Dvaita. So Dvaita is like opposite of Advaita. So we see there are two distinct realities. So you should never compare with the Lord. You're always a servant of the Lord. So that is the Advaita philosophy. So we never equate wave and ocean. Wave can never be the ocean. So that is Dvaita. Now, if we look at certain parallels between these, so again, these are not some religions. These are certain approaches, certain ways of relating with the divine, and we can find certain parallels with these three approaches with the major religions of today. For example, if we take Buddhism, it has certain parallel. Again, I'm not equating these with Buddhism is equals to Advaita, Christianity is equals to Vishta Advaita, Islam is equal to Dvaita. I'm not telling equal to. It has certain parallels. For example, in the Buddhism also, they see Buddha as a human who reached the stature of God through enlightenment. So human being evolving into the divine. And there is this concept of shunyata, which is very similar to the Nirguna Brahma in the Advaita. So similarly, if we take Christianity, it has certain parallels with Vishishta Advaita. The Vishishta Advaita emphasizes devotion, just like how Jesus emphasized devotion. And Jesus, so he, on one hand, he talks about certain diversity of distinction of God, Son, and the Holy Spirit. At the same time, he also tells, I and my Father are one, which is similar to the Vishishta Advaita. So, Advaita with the Vishishtata. And then the Islam. So, as we have seen, Dvaita, they never equate the human being with God. In Islam, that is a very important thing. Even Prophet Muhammad is never considered equal to God. He's always seen as a servant of God. Now that we got certain understanding of these three approaches towards Vedanta, now let us see certain ways of harmony. So let me give a personal example. So I spent quite some time with the ISKCON community. Again, ISKCON is the Dvaita related philosophy, is very much related to the Madhvacharya lineage. Now, so historically, there have been many different, arguments and conflicts between the Dvaita and Advaita. And naturally, Srila Prabhupada, coming from the tradition of Dvaita, he has criticism towards the Advaita philosophy. And I personally have conversation with many people who kind of they reject the Advaita philosophy. They call them Mayavadis and all these things. So Srila Prabhupada also made some criticism towards the people who uphold Advaita philosophy. For example, Vivekananda. All these things are there. And recently, like in 2023. Amog Leela Prabhu, a prominent person in the Indian ISKCON community, he got suspended for a month for making certain disrespectful comments towards Swami Vivekananda. So again, my intention is to give an example of various conflicts that happen between these approaches. At the same time, there is a wonderful person, Radhanath Swami. Uh, so Radhanath Swami, again, to give a little context about ISKCON, Cyril Prabhupada, he went to America in 1960s. At that time, hippie movement was going on. So the people at that time, it is known also as counterculture movement. They were going against the uh, all, why should we have jobs? And they were kind of, what's the point of all these things? just working, earning money, dominating others and all. So there are, let's enjoy life. There is something beyond all this orthodox kind of things. So many people went into drugs and sex, and they were exploring spiritual aspects. It's just that they want to explore something more, and it got all kind. They went into all kinds of things. Now, at this time, Srila Prabhupada went there, and he gave a proper, proper way of life to many of the hippies. And one such hippie is Radhanath Swami. And Radhanath Swami, he came to India. Again, there is a beautiful book called The Journey Home about Radhanath Swami, how he came from America to India. And after coming to India, he has been doing some wonderful work in India. And so he doesn't focus, one beautiful thing is, he doesn't focus much on the criticism aspect. He focused more on this Srila Prabhupada. He was a wonderful being. So he did enormous work for human well-being. So the aspects of love and compassion of Srila Prabhupada, he focused on that. And that is the core of his work. He focused on the teachings of love and compassion. And so many people in the recent years, they know Gaur Gopal Das. He became very famous online. So Gaur Gopal Das is a mentee of Radhanath Swami. Like Radhanath Swami mentored Gaur Gopal Das. Uh, so, so I see, even when there are frictions, what we focus on and the kind of harmony we generate, it is based on what we focus on. Radhanath Swami is a very good example for that. Now, another important way how we can bring the harmony is by bringing in the mystical dimension. This is like the most important thing. So, a tremendous example for that is Sai Baba. So, Sai Baba, he brought a great harmony between the Hindus and Muslims. Of course, recently also there are certain kind of all friction, the extreme right wing who do not like the right wing of Hindutva, who do not like Islam, they do not like Sai Baba, and all these things. Of course, they are there, but still there is a lot of harmony that he brought between Hindus and Muslims, and there is a wonderful saying. So I come from. So my mother and my mother's family, we come from like what to say, family of Datta devotees, Datta Sampradaya. So for us, Dattatreya Swami and Sai Baba, so these are important. Even I am fortunate to have that kind of exposure, and I do Sai Baba Parayana, Guru Charitra Parayana. Uh, so there is a wonderful aspect that Sai Baba tells. He tells this to another Muslim where he is into all kind of friction related to religions and all. So he tells Muslim is the one who helps others experience God. That is the actual Muslim. So like this, there are various ways how Sai Baba brought certain harmony between Hindus and Muslims, and also if you actually go through the life of Sai Baba, there is a wonderful harmony between all these three different philosophies of Advaita, Vishtadvaita, and Dvaita. For example, sometimes he talks about I am God. He talks about on the level of Advaita. And sometimes he encourages other people to read scriptures like Vishnu Sahasranama and Bhagavatam. And then sometimes he is like a proper Dvaita person. So God is supreme. I'm just a servant of God. So all these aspects are there in Sai Baba's life, and not just on philosophical level. When he is telling something, he is coming from an experiencing reality, which is actually that is what mysticism is. So spirituality, not a bookish spirituality, philosophical spirituality, but actual living spirituality. That is mysticism. And when mystics like Sai Baba are there, that is when we have this harmony between all the various different conflicting philosophies. And similarly, there are certain mystical dimensions in Islam and Judaism also. In Islam, it is referred to as Sufism. So you must have heard about some great Sufi saints like Rumi. So, and similarly, there is in Judaism, Kabbalah. So, when people go from the philosophical dimension to the mystical dimension, we see a lot of harmony blossoming there. Now, let us go even deeper into the spiritual layer. That is where actually the mysticism is. Now, as we look at the spiritual layer, so I'll be referring to certain aspects related to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and his lineage. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he was a very great mystic in the 19th century, and he explored various different spiritual paths, and he has experientially seen that all these various paths lead to the same uh, same spiritual reality, and he brought this unity between all the various spiritual paths, and he's guided his disciples accordingly. Swami Vivekananda, very famous disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And so once initially Vivekananda didn't have this kind of harmony. Slowly, as he blossomed in that direction, in 1893, a famous event happened in Chicago, Parliament of World Religions. So Swami Vivekananda went there and he gave speech. So that is considered to be very famous. He became very famous, and when many people focused on their own religion, Swami Vivekananda spoke about universal harmony, harmony of various different religions. Actually, you should go on in and you should read that speech. It's excellent. Swami Vivekananda's speech in the parliament there, and it brought the universal harmony there, and also it brought Bharat to the world stage. So we are talking about a time much before Indian independence. At that time, world perception of India was very low. So at that time, he going there, and people were surprised. So many people, they were sending missionaries to India to educate India, where they were actually destroying the education system in India, and they were sending missionaries in the name of, okay, we should uplift the Indians. And then people were surprised. A man with such wisdom came from this land, and we are sending missionaries to that nation to further educate them. So then people realized uh, about the greatness of India. So all these things happened. And then uh, so Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, again, by the time Vivekananda became famous and he established Ramakrishna Mission, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was no more there. His disciples, organized all this. Now Ramakrishna Mission happened, and the emblem has been specially designed by Swami Vivekananda. It's a very beautiful emblem. So there is the swan in the middle, and there is a waters, and there is a snake around, there is a rising sun, and there is a lotus, and all this, the beautiful emblem. So each of that emblem corresponds to a specific aspect, a specific path of yoga. So there is the Kriya Yoga path, which is the energies, and the Gnana Yoga part, which is through the mind, distinction between what is real and what is not real, and Bhakti Yoga through the emotion, and Karma Yoga through the action. Now, now, whatever spiritual path that we see, or whatever religion that we see, it has certain components of these paths. It is like a certain permutation of combination of these paths. For example, if we take the Advaita, it leans more towards Gnana. It has aspects of Bhakti also, but more towards Gnana. And if we take Dvaita, it leans more towards Bhakti. So in the same way, whichever religion or whichever aspect you take, it can be understood as a certain permutation and combination of these three parts of yoga. Because essentially, this is what we as a human being are. There is energies, there is action, there is mind, and there are emotions. Now, to give a quick example of my own path, to give better understanding, because this is the very core of everything that we'll explore. We're going deeper now. And now, to give a context about my own exploration, so I come from a traditional Hinduism family. So pujas, stotras, and gradually I was doing parayana, and there is a beautiful collection of books by my father. Many of my exploration and my interest comes from that, and I began to explore my own things, Swami Vivekananda, and then there is a book of Swami Ranganathananda of Ramakrishna Mission, Universal Message of Bhagavad Gita. And I was exploring some Western books also, the Road Less Traveled, and related to this spirituality. So I've been doing my own exploration, and in that context, so I Gnana Yoga initially influenced me very much. Jiddu Krishnamurti, Osho, Eckhart Tolle, and then I went into the Kriya Yoga path. So I went to Inner Engineering Isha Foundation. So I got initiated into Shambhavi Mahamudra, and I went to advanced programs in Isha. And then I entered into Karma Yoga. I was doing a lot of volunteering in Isha, and then Bhakti Yoga. So there are Dhyana Linga, Linga Bharavi. I got connected to them. So my own journey has been happening, and if I see my journey, there are aspects of these these four paths of yoga. Now, now there is ascent and descent. Again, this is very important. So again, the context where we are exploring spiritual paths is, in the spiritual process also there will be certain friction that can happen. So to understand that friction, we are exploring this. So if we look at spiritual process, largely they can be seen as two different aspects to spirituality. So it can be called ascent versus descent, or effort versus versus receptivity, or awareness versus abandon. Different systems have their own names. Now, to give an example of my from a personal life. So before 2024, I was very much on this side. You can call that ascent or effort or awareness, very much effort oriented towards spirituality. I will do the effort and reach there. It was very much like that. From 2024, some very interesting things happened. To give one example, I went to, in that period after 2024, I went to Rameshwaram with family. And then, so we go to the Jyotirlinga, and little outside, we cannot sit very near the Jyotirlinga. Little outside, when I came, I was sitting there. I closed my eyes, and it was like an ocean of energy. I began to feel the energies. So, like that, when I go to temples, me feeling the energies, and me being receptive to energies, that began to enhance. So this part is the other path, the descent or the receptivity or the abandoned path of we being receptivity towards those energies. So I wrote more about these experiences in my blog. I'll share the link below this video. If you're interested, you can go through that. Now, as I explored more about the descent path, especially how this happened is, so I want to explore more on Karma Yoga. So as I told Inisha, I've been volunteering. So when I'm in volunteering, I involve very much. But when it comes to my areas of life where that is not necessarily volunteering, I'm not that involved. So how can I bring this aspect of Karma Yoga into my entire life is my question. So as I explored in that direction, then I got connected to Sri Aurobindo. So again, to give a little context about Sri Aurobindo, so he was a freedom fighter, Indian freedom fighter, and then in that process he was jailed. And when he was in the jail, he got instructions from Swami Vivekananda. Again, we need to understand that by that time, Swami Vivekananda already left his body. So, but he got instructions from Vivekananda in jail, and that marked like a very important turning point in his life. So after that, he didn't involve much in the freedom struggle. He went into a certain spiritual pursuit, and his journey started evolved in Pondicherry. So presently, there is Auroville, uh, the whatever the community of Sri Aurobindo, it evolved into that. Uh, So again, I had some very beautiful experiences with respect to Sri Aurobindo's ecosystem. Again, those also, I told that I wrote a blog, right? You can read in the blog. The link will be below. So one important aspect related to this is, so many people, when they are in the spiritual sadhana, in the journey of spirituality, they focus mostly on the ascent, on going towards the spirituality. So I want to go towards mukti. I want to go towards that. So, as a consequence of that, many people, they tend to neglect certain aspects in their lives. For example, social involvement. So, in my, for example, to take my personal example, So when I was very intensely spiritually focused, when I was more in the effort based or ascent mode, I was seeing many things in my life as pointless. For example, why do I have to take care of my health? So I am towards spirituality, the mukti. Whether I'm healthy or not is not that important. Or keeping the room organized. So I would neglect many such aspects. Now, as I got connected to the Sri Aurobindo's ecosystem, then I began to understand the importance of being an instrument of the divine. So here, descent becomes very important. We being receptive to the divine energy, and how we see is we see ourselves as an instrument. So we have the body and we have the vital, the desires and the emotions and all that part, and we have the mind. So we train these aspects, we train our instruments. So to give an example, for example, when we are learning driving, so we are very cautious about our body. We are training our body carefully, step by step. Once we are good at driving, we need not focus on every single thing. So we are engaged in other things also, and still we can talk to other people, we can listen to music, and we can drive because already that muscle memory is there. Body has been trained. In the same way, just like how our mind can take charge of our body once we train it in the context of training. Similarly, when we train our body, our vital, and our mind, the divine can take charge of this instrument. So we becoming instrument becomes very important in this context. And so Sri Aurobindo, in his own way, he kind of applied the parts integration in yoga in a very beautiful way. So so he emphasizes not just on liberation, but transformation of whole being on various different levels, the body, the vital, the mind. So so this all becomes important. And so it's not just about liberation, the spiritual aspect, but the transformed being getting into action. So these are some key aspects of the integral yoga. So now that we looked at various different things, so how okay, maybe let us go to the reflections part. You'll get more understanding. So these are my questions to you. What are the identities that you're operating with? It can be national identities, religious identities, or the various different communal identities. And what is the kind of friction that is happening because of your own identities? And what is so? Are you on a spiritual path? What is it oriented towards? Is it more towards Gnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Kriya Yoga, Karma Yoga? And in that case, is your dominant path creating some kind of friction with the other paths, other aspects of the spirituality? Or do you somehow, maybe unconsciously, neglect certain aspects in your own life, in your own being, in the name of spiritual focus? So, are these creating frictions? So, look within yourself. What kind of frictions are happening because of your own way of doing things, your own approaches? And it is this friction which happens on individual level. When this goes global, it becomes global friction. And that is the context why we started with the Jiddu Krishnamurti's quote that you are the world. And I would like to understand. So, what are your key insights, your key takeaways from this video? And anything else that you wish to express related to the video? We looked at various different aspects, right? The political dimension, there is religious dimension, philosophical dimension, and the spiritual dimension. So anything that you would like to any views that you would like to express, you can mention in the comments below. And also, I'll give details about my Y3 community. There is a certain link through which you can join my community. It is free to join, and you will get to know about various different aspects related to community. So the initial step is free. So all the details also I'll give below this video. All the very best. Namaskaram.